Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about banned books. Y'all, I created my own book tag. This is the Banned and Challenged Books tag. Original to me. I'm very excited. This is the first time I've created a book tag, so let me know what you think. This is a 5-question tag. My goal is to keep it short and sweet so you can get back to reading your banned books and also to fighting the censors. So let's jump into it. Question 1. Do you intentionally read banned books? Why or why not? I do intentionally read banned books. Not every book that I read is sought out specifically because it is banned, but I definitely do refer to the lists and try to understand which books the censors don't want people to read, partly so I can talk about them on this channel, quite frankly. And when I did my first banned book series last October, I was quite surprised actually at how many of the banned books I had read already, how many of them I had in my own collection already. I added some new ones as well, or acquired books that I had read before but just didn't have a copy for whatever reason. The other thing I'll say is that as we continue to see this rise of anti-intellectualism and this fight against the written word that is just so despicable and is such an, in my opinion, obvious way to control the masses. If you keep people from getting an education, they won't have the tools to speak up against you, to fight your power. It may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people just to be someone who happens to read books, be someone who happens to like learning things. The fact that you go about your daily life with that critical mindset, with the ability to notice things that don't feel right and say something, even if it's just to your inner circle, even if it's just to the people around you at the time. The fact that you take that information and then go vote, the fact that you share ideas with the people around you, with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers, those things have ripple effects. And yes, it's great to make a big protest and do those big things as well. Those are also very important. So I'm not knocking those, and I'm not saying, don't worry about them. No, do those things too, if and when you are able. But little acts of defiance really add up as well. Question 2, tell us about your favorite banned book. Technically, my favorite banned book is Fahrenheit 451, but it also makes an appearance in these questions, so I'm gonna hold off for a moment and instead talk about another of my favorite banned books, which is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is a utopian book, and if you are a cynic like me, you might think, well, there's no such thing as utopia, it's all dystopia. Yes, that's true. There's a very fine line between utopia and dystopia, and this book definitely crosses that line. This is set in a future in which everybody has a place. There is no more natural reproduction amongst humans for the most part. The majority of the population is made up essentially of lab-grown clones, including our main character, Bernard. But Bernard is a little bit different from the others. He's in the upper caste, and the expectation of these clones is that because everyone is sterile, they can have sex with anyone and not worry about getting pregnant. And because of the level of medical technology, they don't have to worry about diseases and that kind of thing. And so the populace is encouraged basically just to have big orgies all the time and to seek pleasure. Not just sexual pleasure, but they also take a lot of drugs, mind-altering substances, and they do work, but when work is over, it's all on playtime. There's a lot of extrasensory stimulation, and they're always watching loud movies or listening to loud music, or everything is loud, everything is very communal. And monogamy is strictly forbidden. But Bernard, as I said, he's different from the others, and he feels that he does, in fact, not want to just have sex with anyone. And he becomes attached to one woman and just wants her and nobody else. And he just doesn't fit into this society. And so we're following him and how he comes to grips with how he feels and how it's different from what's expected of him. This book is really creepy. It's really well done. So I love this book and I encourage everyone to give it a try. Question 3, share a story about book banning. So this can be any story. It can be something that happened to you. It can be something that you read about. It can be a funny story. There are some funny stories about book banning, actually, or it can be a really sad and depressing one, which unfortunately most of them are. One of my favorite ones that I learned last year when I was making this series, so I'll link to the video where I talk about it in more detail, but Judy Blume, the children's author, wrote Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, among many other books, many of which have been challenged and banned, by the way. But Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is the famous period book. It's the one that talks about periods in, by the way, an age-appropriate way for people who are having periods for the first time. So it's this experience of being a preteen girl. Your body is changing. You may or may not know what's going on, but it can be scary. And Judy Blume broke this down in a way that is accessible and informative and doesn't talk down to her audience. And that's something that she always does in her books. And I love her for it. When Judy Blume started writing, she had young children. And she was, I believe she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, but she had this urge to write. And so she started doing that while her kids were at school. And when she had opportunities throughout the day, she would write and also care for her home and her family. And eventually she was able to get published. Well, she donated copies of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret to her children's school at the time, a middle school for what it's worth. And the principal of that school sent them back, refused to put them in the library because they talked about periods and because children really don't need to know about that sort of thing. She did point out that one can get one's first period around the age of 11 or 12. So actually middle school is a really good time to learn about those things, maybe even a little bit younger, just so that it doesn't catch you off guard. But I mean, male principal in the 70s, he didn't buy it. There's a little bit of irony in it being her own children's school and they're getting these books for free. And like, you know, it's a big deal when a school turns away a free thing because they are not well funded. Public schools are not well funded. That's a whole other tirade. Judy Blume's books, particularly Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, is continuously removed from middle school and even I think high school libraries, middle school libraries, because they don't want girls to know about periods because they think it's age inappropriate. Wait until they're in high school and then tell them about it. Well, honey, that ship has sailed down the Red Sea, my friend. We have these administrators, usually, but not always men, who think that they are protecting students, they're protecting children, and they're really, really not. They're doing the opposite. If you don't know it's coming and you don't know what it is, and you suddenly start bleeding, that's gotta be terrifying. I was fortunate that I knew what it was when it happened to me, but I've heard horror stories from people who didn't know. That to me is one of the more interesting book banning stories. School turning away free things. Man. Prompt number 4. In the book Fahrenheit 451, there is a community of people who, in order to fight the censors, the people who are burning books, they each memorize a book that they want to preserve. If you were in this situation, what book would you choose to memorize to save it from the censors? For the sake of this question, assume that you have the appropriate amount of time and the resources and the skill set in order to memorize a book, because I know that is no small thing. For me, that's a really tough question to answer because there are so many books, clearly, that I love that I would want to keep. So my first instinct is actually to memorize Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I know I don't have the dust jacket of this anymore. I talk about this book so much, I should probably get a copy with a dust jacket or a paperback with a cover. And I hope this does not come across as a cop-out, though quite frankly, it's my channel and my tag, so we're going with it. I would memorize Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And the reason for that is, one, it's the book that I keep coming back to. It's one that I've read several times and I always get something new out of it. It's really well written. It's such a cornerstone explaining why censorship is a bad thing. And it does it in a way that's accessible to pretty much any reader. It is written in a simple and straightforward style, but it is also somewhat poetic. And it really gets at the core of why books are important. It's a love letter to books. And it's not about the medium of paper and ink and words on paper. It's about the stories that they contain. And it's about the meaning that they contain and the themes and the lessons and the information. That is what makes books so special. So I think I would want to keep this book with me forever. And if I needed to memorize it to do so, then that is what I would do. Question number 5. Are there any books that challenge your opinions on book banning? Be honest and tell us more. Yes, I can think of 2. So I am firmly anti-censorship. I do not believe in book banning. I do not believe in telling other people what they are and are not allowed to read. Of course, if you have a position of guardianship over a child, making sure what they're reading is age appropriate makes perfect sense. But outside of that, your child, not someone else's. Outside of that, I really do not believe that it is acceptable for a government or some sort of external organization of generally pissed off people to decide what other people have access to. That said, there are 2 books that I can think of that challenge this feeling in me and that I really have to stop and say, ooh, and that make me understand where the challenges are coming from. Not agreeing, to be really, really clear, not agreeing with them, but understanding the instinct that makes you say, ooh, maybe I don't want that to be available to everyone. Maybe I don't think that book should be on the shelves, but at the same time, I'm recognizing that it is not my place to tell other people what they are and are not allowed to read. The first one is a book that I tried to read last year, that I talked about last year, which is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. That book is just so gross. I went into it, I tried to go into it with an open mind. I really tried to read it. I got, I think, 40 or 50 pages in, and this man is so disgusting that I could not bring myself to finish it. That said, that doesn't mean that the book should be censored. It means that it is not a book that I want to read. And again, it's the sort of book that if you have children, it's important to consider age appropriateness if they are reaching for that book or if that is assigned to them. And also to be available to discuss the topics that are in there. I think that's a really important thing when you are parenting. And I say this as a non-parent, so grain of salt, right? But I have parents. I was a child who reached for all sorts of books. And I think it's really important if your child is reading something that may be challenging for them in many different directions, not necessarily just disturbing, but just difficult maybe, or hard to comprehend. It's important to be there with them along the way, to discuss it with them, to give them a safe space to ask questions, to understand the topic, and a place to share their concerns and their fears that might come up from reading a particular book. So while I would not give that book certainly to like a 9-year-old, dear God, but a teenager probably can handle that. But again, that's not my place to say whether your child can or cannot handle those books and whether or not your child should read it. The other book is one I just learned about like 3 days ago, and it made me mad. It's a children's book. It's called Just Wait Till We're Diamond, and I cannot remember the author's name. And quite frankly, y'all, I don't care. It was written by someone in Amway, which is a multi-level marketing company, and it is a children's book that talks about the experience of being a child of a parent who is in an MLM. And let me tell you, I'm going to link to a video by Hannah Alonso, and I'll give you the timestamp of where she talks about in that, the video she talks about a number of things. I'll give you the timestamp of where she talks about that particular book. because it is disturbing to me that such a book exists. But it basically, the premise of it is that this child is very excited. Their parents are finally making diamonds, so like rising in this multi-level marketing organization, which means that they will not have to work as hard, they will make more money, and they will have more time to spend with a child, and wasn't it all worth the effort? Gross. This book is out of print, and it's one that I can't imagine seeing on like a library bookshelf. I don't know. It's not the sort of book you expect to stumble on, but even so, I would have a really hard time especially if I had a child. But like, if I saw that book out in the wild, I'd have a really hard time with it. Particularly if I saw it in a library, especially if I saw it in a school library. It's a picture book. It like looks super cute, but then you read the words and it's so gross. But even so, if you're going to read that to your child, that's your decision. That hurts. That actually really does challenge my conviction here. But the thing about free speech is that you can't just protect the speech that you like or that you agree with. You need to protect all of the speech, all of it together, even if you disagree. So it can be a challenge, to say the least. And I do intend that pun 100%. So those were the 5 questions of the tag. Of course, the final prompt is to tag other people, which I will do. I'll probably cast a little bit of a wide net since this is brand new. So if you have a channel and you decide to do this tag video, first of all, I would be honored. Second, please tag me, because I would love to I'd love to watch it and see what your answers were, and to see if people connected with these questions. And if you don't have a channel, I'd love to hear your answers to any or all of these questions in the comments. So please let me know what you think. And above all, whatever you do, please keep reading, and I'll see you in the next one.